I think my story of finding myself as a mother is a combination of these two very traumatic journeys that intertwined into my path of coming home to myself. The first of those journeys being my journey with my body image, and the second being infertility and pregnancy loss. I've always struggled with my body image. I had a mom bod before mom bods were cool. I was basically born this way. The stretch marks, saggy boobs, and rolls are far from new for me. I've been on more diets than I can count, and I have a huge past with disordered eating and movement. My weight has fluctuated in the ballpark of around 140 pounds over the course of my adult life. I met my husband when I was just about to turn 21. We got married when I was 23, and we immediately started trying to conceive. There was something wrong with my body right away, and I was actually able to self-refer to a gynecologist who tested us and started me on treatment for fertility. I did about 4 cycles of medication, and we finally got pregnant. We got to see the heartbeat at 6 weeks, and everything was great. We were told there was a very low chance of miscarriage at that point. And then at 9 weeks, I experienced some spotting. Sent my OB an email. He said, don't really worry. It will be fine. Come in and see me anyway, and we'll just make sure everything's okay. So I went in that day, and he confirmed that our baby had stopped growing at 6.5 weeks. So just a couple days after we saw the heartbeat for the first time. I, at that point, opted to take the medication because that seemed like the best option for us at the time. And that was the hardest time of my life. I was 24, so my brain wasn't really fully developed yet. I had a hard time coping with it. And I, at that point, had spent so many years learning to hate my body. And that hate was just really affirmed by the fact that my body couldn't provide us with a family. I hated every square inch of myself inside and out. After the miscarriage, we jumped right back into monitored and medicated cycles. And within another 4 cycles, so 4 cycles for each pregnancy, I was pregnant again, this time with our rainbow baby. Everything was great with that pregnancy. Plus size pregnancy, however, was, and also plus size pregnancy coupled with pregnancy after loss was intense. My complicated relationship with my body was really triggered by regular weigh-ins that were subject to scrutiny by my doctor. I was being praised for losing weight, especially during my second pregnancy. I wasn't trying to lose weight. I was just too sick to eat. Maternity clothes weren't accessible, or if they were accessible at all, they weren't fashionable for people of my size. Things like belly support bands weren't available in my size a few years ago. It was a really isolating experience. And I'm a size 2X, so it's not like I'm on the far end of the plus size spectrum. Plus size clothing, and especially maternity clothing, just isn't accessible at all. My second pregnancy, however, I did feel like a complete goddess, but I chalked that up to my self-love journey that I had already embarked on at that time. But I will still recognize that it was exceptionally hard to go through those regular weigh-ins again. I ended up having both of my babies via C-section. My one baby was losing circulation due to a very tight cord wrapped around his neck, and my second baby was scheduled, but my water broke 20 hours before, and in response to that, he lodged himself tightly into my rib cage. I am the only person I know that had both the vacuum and forceps used during my C-section. It was pretty rough. Plus size C-section care is a very different experience than C-section care for a straight size person. Healthcare professionals that I met with were pretty unequipped to help me care for my wound properly. So I lucked out that I'm a nurse and took matters into my own hands and bought my own wound care supplies and did it myself. But there's a lot of extra care that goes into caring for an incision under a belly that nobody really talks about. So that in itself was another really isolating experience. And then into breastfeeding, it was something that I tried very hard to embrace and put a lot of pressure on myself to do it. I breastfed my first for 2 years, and I'm going on 11 months with my second. I don't know if I had ever seen a plus size person breastfeeding, and I had been warned by some healthcare professionals that I might not be able to breastfeed because of my size, which totally wasn't the case for me, but I kind of made it my mission to be my own representation and prove a point kind of that I could go on that journey. And it just, I really had to be that advocate for myself to be able to go on that journey. And so right after we had our first baby, we started trying again for our second baby under the recommendation of my OB around the time that my son was 18 months. So we had been a long time trying by that point. I really hit rock bottom with my body image. I was grieving month after month with each negative pregnancy test, and I hated my body more than I had ever hated it before. I remember just waking up one day and thinking that I couldn't live like this anymore. I didn't want to exist in my body. I had seen body confident influencers and legitimately thought that I wasn't worthy of giving myself that love. But I forced myself down a path of getting to know myself and learning to accept my body. And I've been focusing on unlearning what society taught me about my body and my worth as a human. I'm 2 years into this journey, and it has been so life-changing, and I am finally finding my way home to myself. I am super proud of my body because it has been there for me even when I didn't love it. It has provided a safe home for my babies and has carried me through tough times.